Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Sponsored once again by On Fire Ministries, in the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea with Megan Needham today for our Gen Z segment, where she gets to ask me unscripted whatever questions she wants to about the issues of the day, and we get to talk about what the truth is and give some context, history, maybe even some geography lessons if necessary as well.
I'm very excited to be back with you today, Matt. And I have a couple of videos, actually, today that I wanted to get your reaction to.
Right.
Saw them on Instagram. Thought they were quite interesting. The first video that I want to start with is an interview between Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz. And it's old. I would say it's old news. It's from June, but I just recently saw it, and I thought it was such an interesting interview. I like Tucker Carlson, but the strategy that he took in the interview was something that I didn't expect. It really felt like he was attacking Ted Cruz in an interesting way. So we have the video ready. Why don't we go ahead and play the clip?
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about the
See, there you go. So we can stop that right there. I want to just kind of react to that if it's okay. First of all, I believe that we need to start training and teaching formal logic again.
Right.
Formal logic used to be taught in school. And so you could recognize a logical fallacy when it was said. So just first, overall, just totally objective, not even talking about this kind of gotcha setup with Ted Cruz. So first of all, Ted was honest. Yeah. And we actually need more people to say, I don't know that.
Right.
Let me look into it. Okay, so that actually was honest. His body language, very honest body language. He was being genuine. He doesn't know the population.
Yeah.
He brings up a good point. He asks Tucker, okay, why is that relevant? And Tucker says, we don't know anything about Iran.
Right.
And that is what's called a false generalization. That is a logical fallacy used to try to put somebody back on their heels. All right, so that objectively said, Tucker Carlson is engaging in a logical fallacy, and he is intentionally trying to set up Ted Cruz.
He's rage baiting him.
Yeah.
That's what we call it. He's literally rage baiting him into, later in the interview, he's rage baiting him into revealing, government secrets, because later in the in this clip he says that we're going to bomb Iran.
So Iran. Sorry. It's intentional to try to get somebody off balance so that they reveal something. That's the first thing. So we got to understand that when you look at any interview ever, you look at any interview on the news, always be listening for the logical fallacy. Is it a false generalization? Is it a false dichotomy, which is a fancy way of saying where somebody says, well, there's only one of two choices. Well, actually, there's always a third. Right. So I know that is a false dichotomy. I know it's a logical fallacy. A straw man argument where they put up a weak argument, say this is what they're actually arguing when it's actually what they're not arguing. Yeah. So we got to be attuned to that just from a fifth generation warfare standpoint and looking at this objectively. So if there's more to that interview, let's roll that, and then we can react again.
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even. You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay,
actually,
I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Okay,
Yes,
there's
I
a whole
do.
bunch
You're not
in this
calling
right
for
here.
military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that,
carrying out military.
Let's stop it right now. Okay, so my goodness,
Tucker got riled up.
So first of all, we got to understand a few things. So you got a U.S. senator and you got Tucker Carlson, who is connected to Qatar. Okay, those are objective facts.
How is he connected to Qatar?
Because Qatar helps to fund some of the stuff that he does. Okay, and there's actually been some.
Is that good or bad?
I don't trust Qatar at all, or Qatar as most people pronounce it. I don't trust them at all because they've been one of the greatest supporters monetarily of jihadis in the entire world and terror networks in the entire world. So, I don't, and we have a U.S. base there, okay, in Doha.
Yeah.
All right, so you have a U.S. senator, okay, and the question really is, should the United States bomb Iran at this time, when this video comes out? Should we bomb Iran? And if so, what are the reasons that we should do that, okay? Mm-hmm. And is there a direct existential threat to the United States of America? Okay, so I'm going to break this down constitutionally. First of all, when we go to war as the United States, we have to have a debate publicly and a vote, declaration of war, according to the Constitution. Okay. However, in a defensive capacity, the president has the authority to go to war to protect the United States of America. Okay, there are some incidents where there could be an invasion, could be an insurrection or an infiltration into a country for the purpose of overthrow. Could be direct threats to the United States of America. Okay, so has Iran directly threatened the United States of America? And
yes.
The answer is yes. I mean, they chant it everywhere, and they have since 1979.
Yeah.
Death to America all the time.
It's
Death to Israel. Death
catchphrase.
Right. So, in addition to that, they ran and they run one of the largest terror proxy networks in the world as a matter of fact. Nobody, so what we're seeing here when the two guys are kind of, charging at each other as two bulls in a room or something, we're missing the bigger point of, and Ted Cruz was trying to get to that.
Right.
That there is a terror network that they're responsible for. And Soleimani was a butcher.
Right.
Okay, so let's recognize the facts on the ground. These guys killed Americans. The Iranians killed Americans, American soldiers.
Yeah.
Okay, they've infiltrated sleeper cells into the United States of America as a matter of fact. Unit 910, you have all of the other proxies with that, like the Muslim Brotherhood Special Section and the associated groups that are effectively Al-Qaeda or ISIS,
right,
that are in the United States of America that have worked together. Okay, so when you hear this go back and forth, it's what's called an ad hominem attack. They're now attacking each other personally.
Right.
Then we miss the bigger point.
Right.
And the bigger point is, should the United States actually bomb Iran and take out their nuclear program? Well, if somebody threatening the United States with death to America,
mm-hmm.
okay, where the majority of the population is Shia Muslim, and their leadership is Shia Muslim from the Jafari school, Twelvers, okay, which is an eschatology inside Shia Islam. It's a study of end times or a belief in end times in Islam, Shia Islam, that believes that this Mahdi is going to come back out of a well and calm Iran, walk down a highway, which, by the way, they've made.
Why is he climbing out of a well?
Well, he fell into a well a long time ago.
This is like...
And then he's going to come out of the well, walk down a highway to Tehran, and this is kind of the last times he's going to rule the world.
This is like The Conjuring and The Ring and all of those.
And I am way oversimplifying it, but the point is that Jafari school Twelvers like this believe that there needs to be the destruction and chaos created in the world to usher in the return of the Mahdi. And so that means bombing Israel and bombing the United States of America. So when you have somebody whose religious beliefs are expressed, and it really is the only true theocracy. You can't have a theocracy in America. There's a fifth column in the United States that will throw out theocracy.
What's
and Christian
theocracy?
nationalism. It's essentially where religious clerics are the government. Okay. But in the United States, we believe, as Christians, we believe Jesus Christ is the king of the United States. Some people try to say that's a theocracy, but that fails because it's not the real definition of it. Yeah. In Iran, you actually have the Ayatollah who is the final authority on governmental decisions. So you've got a theocracy, you've got a religious belief system bent on the destruction of Christians, and particularly Israel and the United States. You have a belief system that they have backed up, not just with their rhetoric, but with their terror proxies around the world. You have a regime who claim that they were peaceful nuclear research, but everyone in the intelligence community knows, and we could see by their own actions, that they were trying to build a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
And they've been very clear that they want to use it too. In fact, they put out a tweet, which is not mentioned here, put out a tweet showing essentially a nuclear bomb in the background of them getting ready to push the red button. So this is from an official government account, right? So when you see this kind of, back and forth, okay, what is the real question? Should the United States take out their nuclear capacity after trying to come to a peaceful resolution? Well, that's exactly, it's exactly what President Trump did. Now, I do believe that there needs to be a declaration of war. If we were going to go to war with Iran, there needs to be a declaration of war, and there needs to be a public debate about it. But that's not what happened. He just ordered our Air Force to go in on a surgical strike and take it out, while still seeking peace with the regime. So Ted Cruz, at least from a moral standpoint, is on the right side here. Yeah. But Tucker, again...
It's so interesting. I feel like he took this... I'm trying to figure out right now. I like Tucker Carlson. I like the way that he goes about interviewing. I feel like he's really after the truth. But in this particular video, and some of his other ones, I have a hard time seeing what side he's on. Because the way he goes about his interviews... He's clearly trying to get something out of Ted Cruz in this interview, and it's almost like he's just waiting in the bushes. He's like, all right, I got this question, and I'm going to get you to say something that's going to get me views, or I'm going to get you to say something that's going to get you in trouble. And I find that interesting as, like, from a journalist standpoint, is that, it gets you views, it gets you a good story, but from a moral standpoint, why would we be interviewing someone like that when we could get to the real question, the real issue, which is what you said?
So Iran is Persia. Okay, so Persians are obviously, in the majority, not in the minority. So that's what I need to know, right? And so could Ted Cruz have some more prep time ahead of it? Yeah, okay. Now you're kind of sharpshooting people ahead of time. But from a geostrategic standpoint, the Balochistan area in southeast Iran, right on the border with Pakistan, is critical to understand that minority area, because they have a network that has been effectively fighting an insurgency, not just in Iran, but also in Pakistan, which is right next door. And then to the northwest of Iran, you have the Azeris. So Azerbaijan, that's where that word comes from, the Azeri population there. They have always kind of wanted to be a part of Azerbaijan. And then literally right next to them, to the west, you have the Kurds, who have long been a U.S. ally, but also have some infiltration of some communist elements into Kurdistan and into some of the Kurdish movements that obviously we would want to be careful of. Okay, so if I know all of those things, do I just know all of those things? Do they really have bearing on the original question that I asked?
I think it's so... I don't really know, because I don't know any of these things, but my initial reaction to this video was, oh my gosh, Ted Cruz doesn't know about the government that he wants to overthrow, because that's the narrative that they're pushing. Yeah,
he's a dummy. He's a dumb senator.
Why is he calling for the strike of this country if he doesn't know anything about it? But when you get down to it, does the population really matter if the issue is that Iran has a nuclear weapon that they want to use against the United States?
Instead of knowing that Ted Cruz was actually one of the most profound and capable constitutional litigators, lawyers in the modern history of the United States. So obviously he's not dumb.
No, he's not, but that's what they're trying to say.
Right. So, but again, I go back to, okay, so let's say I know the population of Iran is 92 million people. Let's say that I know that the percentage breakdown in these specific 3 ethnic groups, although there are many others in Iran, which a lot of people don't know. Does that change the answer to the question of should the United States?
No.
No, it doesn't. It has nothing to do with it.
Why is this relevant?
Right. And that was the right question because it has nothing to do with it. It could in the sense of, and President Trump has been very clear that he's not trying to advocate for regime change.
Right.
But regime change, if it comes, would be welcomed if it was from the inside of Iran. Okay, now it's relevant if Iran was going to, from the inside, have a coalition of these different groups. And so when we come back from the break, we're going to talk a little bit more about that.
What if I told you you could convert your 401k or your IRA into gold? While your retirement is being beat up by a volatile stock market and inflation, it could instead be resting safely in physical gold at a place of your own choosing, including your own business. Look, gold has increased 50% in just the last year. Stock market, it's been nothing but a roller coaster. So protect your retirement from market chaos by calling Verity Metals today.
And we are back from the break talking about an interesting interview between Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz about the population of Iran and the importance of knowing that. Pastor Matt, tell me a little bit more about the layout of Iran, please.
Well, I mean, again, just coming back to the groups, did it affect the original answer? Should the United States take out Iran's nuclear facility? No, it has nothing to do with it. So, okay, so why was that put in there? It was put in there to make Ted Cruz look stupid, okay? Right. And so then, could Ted Cruz have been more prepared? Yes. Laura Loomer threw out that Tucker Carlson was bankrolled by Qatar. Tucker Carlson's team says, no, we're not bankrolled by Qatar. There's no proof that we've ever taken any money by Qatar. I mean, he has done an interview with leaders from Qatar.
Yeah.
Okay, but again, is that relevant? Well, I mean, it could be. Yeah. If there's corruption, maybe that could be. But let's get to the central issue. And this is where you have people that know 2,000 facts, but don't actually know the truth. Mm-hmm. You follow what I'm saying? Because they're so distracted by so much information. And we just saw that, and you came away with, well, Ted Cruz must be totally unprepared and dumb. Right. And I came away with it, how come everybody's dancing around the central issue? Shouldn't the United States take out the nuclear facilities of Iran?
I think the appeal of social media views, and I also feel like the appeal of broadening your audience and gaining notoriety on the internet, I feel like the appeal of the age of social media has somewhat corrupted journalism in a way. And there's so many people with podcasts, things to say, that we have all these different opinions. We have all these different things being said. But at the end of the day, what we're coming away with is, well, Ted Cruz doesn't know what he's talking about. But that's actually incorrect.
Is that news? Yeah, but it's also incorrect. But is that really even news?
No, it's not news. It's just, I mean, the only thing I saw from that is, okay, Ted Cruz got rage baited into saying something he might not have had permission to say. But at the end of the day, he probably was allowed, he could have been allowed to say what he said anyway.
Well, he is a sitting U.S. senator, so let's continue. Is there more to the, okay, let's continue. So. Yeah.
You're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that.
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right. With our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied, on behalf of Trump, that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting Israel.
High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay.
It's so interesting. Did you see how Tucker looked right into the camera, like Jim from The Office? He was like, he looked right there. He said, "This is high stakes. You're saying something crazy."
So, well, first of all, okay, so we know just from being able to look back in time now, only a month. By the way, we're like living, or 2 months. We're living like a decade in a week every week. So people even forgot this happened. So just looking back at it, though, we know that, there was disinformation put out by Trump and Israel so that they could have the element of surprise and catch Iran off guard.
Do you think Ted Cruz said something incorrect here?
So that's good. That's warfare. Yeah. That is good strategy, warfare, and execution. It just is from a just a geostrategic point of view.
Yeah.
Are you saying, Pastor, that people should look at in warfare? George Washington lied to his own troops because he knew he had spies in his own ranks, and that comment that he made to his troops actually led to the victory at Yorktown and the end of the Revolutionary War. So let's not get caught up in trying to confuse government action with individual responsibility for telling the truth. Okay. Right. So when the government is acting like that, especially in a warfare capacity, of course there's deception. Are you saying we shouldn't have the fake tanks that Patton used in World War II to confuse the Germans before the landing of Normandy, which saved lives?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, let's look at things the way we're supposed to. But again, all of this, we can talk about all this information, but what was the central issue? Central issue, should the United States take out Iran's nuclear program?
Right.
Because we're the only ones that had the technological capability to do that.
The answer is yes.
And I think the answer is yes. And is it defensive? Yes, because Israel clearly laid the groundwork, clearly, morally.
Yeah.
They were attacked first.
Right.
They started everything. I mean, with Hamas, Hezbollah.
That always confused me with the support for Hamas and Palestine and all of those things. I'm like, okay, well, they started it.
They started it.
So why is everybody upset with Israel finishing it?
They started it. Well, Israel shouldn't be there in the first place. Well, actually, yes, they should.
And then we have people who say that the war and all of the things that we're doing to defend Israel, that war isn't biblical. That Jesus lived a life of peace, and he called for us to turn the other cheek. And I feel like people take out of context those things because they don't understand Jesus was teaching the Jews these things, and he spoke in parables in those ways because he was teaching the Jews in a way who lived by the law, the eye for an eye, all those 600 laws, and he was teaching them in a way that they would understand. And so something that I was trying to understand was, okay, well, if Jesus says if someone hits you, turn the other cheek and let them hit your other cheek, how does that make war okay?
Right.
If that's what Jesus taught, if we're supposed to live as Jesus lived, what?
This is precisely what I was just talking about, the difference between individual responsibility and government responsibility. So Romans 13 very specifically says that the government doesn't wield the sword in vain. So wait a minute, you're saying in the New Testament the government wields the sword? Yes. The purpose of government in Romans 13 is to promote good and punish evil. That is literally what it comes down to. In our republic, in the United States of America, we do not live in democracy. The word democracy is in none of the founding documents. In fact, the founding fathers specifically came against democracy, demos Cratian, with the idea of mob rule. A republic, res publica, the public thing or the rule of law, means that no matter who's in charge, we always have the same rights, and they can't be voted away because our rights come from God and are protected by our Constitution. We don't have constitutional rights. We have constitutionally protected rights. Okay, there's a brief digression. But the point is that government is supposed to wield the sword to defeat evil, because sometimes that's the only way evil can be defeated. This argument actually was had inside the Christian church in earnest in 732 AD, when the Muslim armies came up through Spain and attacked near Tours, France. Charles the Hammer Martel said, we cannot, if we have the ability to stop them, we cannot sit by while these Islamic armies come through, raping, murdering, not just raping women, okay, raping men, defiling churches by raping people on the altars of churches, and murdering children. Okay, we cannot stand by as these Islamic armies come through if we have the opportunity to stop this evil.
Right.
And so they did stop that evil. 732 AD was the beginning of the end for the Islamic Caliphate there in that part of Europe, and eventually they were driven out in the year 1492. which is what...
When Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
Yes, and if you read his journal, one of the reasons he sailed the ocean blue was to find a way into, a back door into the Islamic Empire so they could defeat it for good. That's not really taught in the history books, but it's there. And so my point here is, with Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson, just step back for a second. Mm-hmm. Whose side are you on?
Right, that's the question I have.
There's been a 1,400-year war against the West by Islam, okay? And you have a Shia Jafari school, 12er sect in charge of Iran, saying they want to nuke the United States, saying they want to nuke Israel, and they're trying and taking affirmative material steps to develop nuclear weapons by their own admission.
Right.
And now also borne out by very clear intelligence evidence as well. Mm-hmm. Should we not take that out? Again, you come back to this one issue, but all of this other stuff was fluffed around it.
But what's Tucker Carlson focusing on? The population. You don't know the population. Pastor Matt, hang on, Pastor Matt. What's the population of Spokane?
In the greater Spokane area, probably over 400,000. But the only reason I know that is because I was in the political sphere.
See, but if you asked me the same question, I would have no idea.
You'd have no idea.
But
you're not a sitting U.S. senator either.
No, I know that makes me a little less important. But if I wanted to do something important in Spokane to protect it, would the number of people living in Spokane make a difference?
Not necessarily, no.
So it's so interesting that he just took this perspective of, okay, so there's this huge underlying issue, but I'm just going to focus on the fact that you don't know the specifics of this information.
Now, he would turn around and say, but policy-wise, you would need to know the population to know how many police officers should be on the street. Okay. That's not what we're talking about. Again, when somebody asks me about foreign policy, what should the foreign policy be of the United States, or, Russia, Ukraine?
Yeah.
Whose side are you on? Here's how I answer that question as a pastor. I'm on the Christian side. I was literally there on the ground in Ukraine and in Poland as people were fleeing 2 weeks after the war started, and they were coming and saying, we want Bibles. We want to know more about Jesus, because they had seen death, destruction. Yeah. They were in a huge state of fear, to be honest with you, at that time, right? And so revival was breaking out. I mean, they knew they needed God. And so when people ask me, I'm for the Christians. Right. That's who I'm for. And if there is a Jewish population there, which, by the way, interestingly enough, in the former Soviet Union, the Christians would see persecution come against the Jews first, and then it would always come to the Christians afterwards. So they always saw as a warning that persecution would come against the Jews first and then the Christians. I find it interesting that Israel is attacked in the Middle East first, and they call Israel the little Satan, in America the great Satan, because it's the same spirit and the same idea. The United States is a beacon on a hill.
Right.
Okay, it is a beacon on a hill.
We're different than every other country in the world.
I really believe that. But what we need to get straight here, and we need to get clear, is what are we actually talking about and what actually matters? Right?
Yeah. What are we fighting for?
Let's have it. I mean, it would have been a better interview if they had had a straight debate on the issue.
Right.
Of whether the U.S. should bomb Iran and take out their nuclear program. Just up front, just say that.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, and should this result in regime change? Well, we're not going to advocate regime change, but do the Iranians want regime change? Well, some polls out recently maybe bear that out. 62% of Iranians want to change to the constitution in Iran. Okay. Well, I mean, what's the poll? How is the poll formulated? I mean, we could go down that road and say, is this legitimate?
Is Iran run by like the Muslim Brotherhood?
No, they're run by the mullahs in Iran who are Shia. So Muslim Brotherhood is Sunni. Yeah.
Do they have Sharia law there?
They do have Sharia law. That's interesting that there is a common thread between Sunni and Shia of Sharia law. Yes. So, although they don't call it Sharia law. That's a Western kind of term. So
are the women there required to be completely veiled and they can't,
Yes, and they have police that enforce that. Yes. So, yeah. So the U.S. foreign policy, are we talking about that? Yes. Okay. The U.S. foreign policy should be, if there's going to be regime change, then Iran needs to change its regime, right? This has to come from the Iranian people and not from the United States of America. So when we come back from the break, we're going to talk more about this, a very fascinating conversation here on our Gen Z segment. More.
What if I told you could convert your 401k or your IRA into gold? While your retirement is being beat up by a volatile stock market and inflation, it could instead be resting safely in physical gold at a place of your own choosing, including your own business. Look, gold has increased 50% in just the last year. Stock market, it's been nothing but a roller coaster. So protect your retirement from market chaos by calling Verity Metals today.
And we are back from the break, and to kind of segue into our next video, I feel like it is relevant to this conversation as well, because it's a video that Charlie Kirk posted of New York City. And it's quite interesting to me that so many people say that, you know, not wanting Islam to take over the United States or other countries, that's Islamophobia. Okay, I don't even know what that means. You know, you and I have talked about how Islam isn't really a religion; it's a political way of life, and it's just
civilization.
Yeah, it's insanity, really. But this video.
So, incidentally, you can't say somebody's racist, okay, for calling out Islam, because Islam is not a race; it's a civilization.
Yeah,
anyway,
I'm not racist. Yeah. I don't know if that helps my case, but anyway, this video, when I saw it, my jaw dropped, and I was. This is not Europe. This is not Iran. This is not Pakistan. Yep. This is New York City, the United States of America. Okay, go ahead and play the clip.
The call to prayer.
Look at how many people are there.
Yep. So,
this is New York City.
So the significance of this is I mean, this is very profound. When they do that, they are claiming the ground for Islam. Okay.
Yes.
And you can go so far as to say they're claiming the ground for Islam
in the public square.
In the public square, but as far as that voice can be heard. Okay.
Yes.
So one of the important books ever written on this, I believe, in modern times, very, very difficult book to read because of the graphic nature of it, but it uses primary sources. So again, you don't want to read what somebody says. You want to go read what is actually been said by witnesses, eyewitnesses account that are corroborated and confirmed by other eyewitness accounts. So, and usually it's better if you have it from both sides when you're talking about a war. Mm-hmm. So the book by Raymond Ibrahim, Sword and Scimitar, talks about the 1400-year war against the West, and it uses primary sources from both the Christian side and the Muslim side. And so you get a very good, accurate picture of the fight against the West. When I see something like this, why does it always have to come to America, right? Why does it have to come to Ireland, right? Do the Irish people not have a country of their own? Now, Ireland, the Irish is an ethnicity, okay? They have their own language. Why do they have to give their own country up? I mean, that doesn't make sense. Yeah. Right? And then people say, well, you know, that sounds like Christian nationalism. So Jesus Christ was a nationalist.
What even is Christian nationalism?
It's an active measure by Marxists and communists, which I think gets to an even bigger point that a lot of Christians, you know, kind of going back to what Tucker Carlson is like, whose side are you on?
Right.
A lot of Christians are actually taking the side of those who have been warring against Western civilization for 1,400 years.
Why?
They're taking the side of those who have been warring against Western civilization as communists and Marxists for, 150 years. And yes, that's correct. Communist Manifesto was written in the mid 1800s. If you didn't know that, so you have I think a crisis of identity. Really, I mean, so why do they do that? Because you don't know history. They've actually never gone maybe and read that. And they need to, because there is a red-green axis, communists and jihadis, that are working seamlessly right now to try to take down the United States of America. That's why you have communist groups siding with the pro-Palestinian groups on college campuses, rioting, etc. That's why you'll see these people together.
What's even being taught in these college campuses? My question is, what's even being taught at college? I didn't go to college because I didn't want to be brainwashed, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah.
But what's even being taught on college campuses that there are these huge groups of people breaking out that are now like, yes, I'm a proud American communist. What is that even? What even is that? Didn't our grandparents fight against communism and socialism to come to this country? Mine did.
Communism is a belief system that is satanic from a Christian point of view. You can go back and read Karl Marx's poetry.
It's so dark.
Written in 1837. Very, very dark. And it was very satanic, very overtly satanic, actually. Yeah. So you have some very clear spiritual markers. Okay, Islam denies the Son. In the scripture, in the New Testament, it says, he who denies the Father and the Son is a false prophet. That's a discernment point for us. You also have, in Islam, some recitations of creeds, of pledges. Muslim Student Association actually has a pledge where they say jihad is their spirit. Well, jihad is defined in the Reliance of the Traveler, which is the foremost Sunni law book with the stamp of Al-Azhar University on it for its authenticity and for its authoritative wording in English. It says jihad is warfare against non-Muslims.
Yeah.
So
where
watch
they bomb
this.
themselves and somebody else.
Right. So who are non-Muslims? Well, Christians and Jews. So their spirit is warfare against Christians and Jews. So their spirit is warfare against Christians. So their spirit is warfare against Christ. Well, that's literally in their own words, in their most authoritative law book, the Antichrist spirit.
Yeah.
I mean, like this is very simple, like very clear, no arguments, no, and you have volumes of history to back up what I'm saying. Okay, you have to take out of context everything to try to even get around that, or do a lot more logical fallacies. But the issue is, who do we want to be as Americans? Right? Is the Constitution not what we've all agreed on? And communism is an active attempt to overthrow the Constitution of the United States. Right. Islam is a civilization that wants to overthrow the Constitution of the United States. In fact, they say it's Allah's divine law. They cannot pledge allegiance to the Constitution because it's in conflict with Allah's divine law. Yeah. Sharia laws, as most Westerners will call it.
I mean, when I see this video, what I see is people making a statement.
Sure.
It's like, okay, you've immigrated. Maybe they have immigrated to this country. Maybe they've lived here their whole lives. I don't know. But they're in the public square. There's hundreds, if not 1,000 people in that video. Praying in the public square as far as they can be heard. And to me, they're saying, we're here. Try and do something about it.
Right.
I feel like it's a statement of, we're in your country. And it's so interesting, the timing of this. I haven't seen something to this scale in the United States publicly, ever, personally.
Yeah.
And the timing of this is so, I feel, very specific, because it's after the United States has bombed Iran, and there's growing tensions in the Middle East.
Sure.
And now all of a sudden in New York City, we have hundreds of Islamic people, the call to prayer, praying in the public square.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, you just in the Middle East, Lebanon is, on the verge of another civil war potentially. You have the United States potentially getting ready to attack Iran again.
Why are they attacking them again?
Because there may have been a nuclear site. Actually, we talked about it on Patriot Radio, a nuclear site that was untouched, where some of that stuff went. And so you have that side. And then here you have some really overt violence from the Marxists and the jihadis right now, aimed at Christians, patriots, aimed at not just people, but property. And things feel,
I mean, someone just got murdered on the way to Pursuit Church in Seattle.
Right. You have, you're not necessarily connected to jihadis or Marxists.
Timing is just weird.
Gangs, which may be proxies for, I don't know. There's an investigation going on there. But the fact is you have Christians being targeted, and you have Christian property being targeted. How many church shootings have there been in the last 6 months? And we talked about it. Yeah.
In the United States.
So from a spiritual perspective, things are stirring up. They're ramping up. Everybody can kind of feel it.
Yeah.
So again, going back to, this is a crisis of identity, I think, for a lot of Americans. Who are we? Who are we as Americans? I mean, I can go through the case for America being a Christian nation and prove it unequivocally.
Yeah.
That this is a Christian nation.
Founded on biblical principles.
Yeah. Now, is it acting as a Christian nation today? There could be some argument maybe there, but the intent, the establishment, the documents that established it, all of those things, this is a Christian nation.
Right.
And, time and again, from, Virginia charters, from Mayflower Compact, from the Declaration of Cape Henry, where the United States was dedicated to God.
Yeah.
Okay, with a cross up on a hill. In fact, there's a memorial to this day. 1643, the Articles of Confederation, United Colonies, whereas we all came into these parts with one and the same end and aim to expand the kingdom of Jesus Christ, enjoy the gospel. Okay, enjoy the gospel of liberty and purity and peace. So there's this push that people say we're not a Christian nation. They're liars, and they're intentionally lying, and they know the history, but they choose to lie. They'll say Thomas Jefferson was a deist. Can we argue whether Thomas Jefferson was actually a Christian who accepted Jesus Christ as the Lord and Savior? Okay. But a deist would not go to prayer meetings every week in the Capitol imploring God to intervene in the affairs of man, because by definition, a deist thinks God is aloof and not interfering in the affairs of man. Benjamin Franklin, helping to fund the First Great Awakening, or where you talk about just Thomas Jefferson saying that this country is based on the law of nature and nature's God. Well, those are two legal terms of art defined by Blackstone in his commentaries on the laws of England 7 years before, which said the law of nature is God's truth written into creation. The law of nature is God is Holy Scripture. That is what we're founding the United States on. Then you have the congressional investigations with Senator Badger and Representative Meacham. They try to abolish chaplains. And so Congress did a whole investigation on it and said, this is a Christian people. And then in another report, had the American people at the time of the revolution known there was going to be a war on Christianity, revolution would have been strangled in its cradle. Then you have the Holy Trinity case where the United States Supreme Court said, this is a Christian nation, period. Right? So you can't get away from the bigger issue here. And the bigger issue is that the United States was founded with the intent to be a Christian nation that honored God. You can maybe argue about whether you're going to be Presbyterian or Pentecostal. Okay, but there was a common understanding, belief, and agreement. The Constitution of the United States of America was what we're agreeing to as the framework, that the underpinning was Jesus Christ, and that Jesus Christ was the king of the country. So with that said, that shouldn't be really controversial, but it is today. And when we come back from the break, let's answer the question, maybe why is that controversial?
What if I told you could convert your 401k or your IRA into gold? While your retirement is being beat up by a volatile stock market and inflation, it could instead be resting safely in physical gold at a place of your own choosing, including your own business. Look, gold has increased 50% in just the last year. Stock market, it's been nothing but a roller coaster. So protect your retirement from market chaos by calling VERITY Metals today.
And we are back from the break, and I have a question for you. What would you say to people who would say to that video, well, that's just Muslims practicing their freedom of religion? And I know that you and I don't believe that Islam is a religion, but in this country we do have freedom of religion. You can practice your religion in public. And so I know we have gatherings in parks, we have public worship nights, and we do all of these things. So what makes what those people in that video are doing different than a Christian worship night in the park?
So when people get afraid, right, they will say, well, we got to just ban that, right? Instead, why isn't this a call to action for Christians to do a prayer gathering? Right? And we have done prayer gatherings in actually some of the darkest places in the United States, right? We've done huge prayer gatherings in Washington, D.C. at the mall. I mean, there were hundreds of thousands of people there and watching online as well, right? It was amazing. So we've done that, and it should be a call to action to Christians, not to be afraid of it, but a call to action. Now, where Islam and adherents cross a line with criminal activity, honor killings, with criminal activity regarding the trafficking of young girls, polygamy, where they're breaking the law, which is criminal activity.
Well, what do you say to people who say, well, the Catholic Church, I mean, the church priests, they molested little boys, the altar boys.
Well, thank you for making my point for me. Everybody agreed that there needed to be accountability, criminal accountability there. And actually, there has been some. I'm not saying that it has been anywhere near the justice that is required or needed. I think we all think that fell very short. But the fact of the matter is, we all agree there needed to be accountability there. So you have a ream of Supreme Court cases that are very clear on this point, that your religious practice cannot be a veil,
right?
Okay, for doing criminal activity. All right,
absolutely.
Okay, so when we take communion in public and worship together in public, isn't it interesting that certain governmental entities have come against that? Okay, and said, well, you can't pray, or we're gonna ostracize you publicly,
right?
Okay, for praying, worshiping, taking communion, right? Anointing with oil. We're going to ostracize you publicly. Well, okay, why is it okay to say they can do that in New York, but I can't do that here in my own hometown?
Yeah.
There is very clearly not just a logical fallacy, it's just hypocrisy is what it is.
I guess my question is really because I know if people watch this and they say, well, you guys worship in the park. Why can't they pray? You pray in the park. Why can't they pray? So in the park?
They go do their thing in the park.
So what is the difference though? So maybe someone might be confused. Okay, so what is the difference between you guys praying in the park and them praying in the park? Other than, I mean, we can go into the Quran and everything that it says.
Well, again, like I said, I think the differentiation is where conduct goes into the criminal sphere. Funding terrorist organizations like the Holy Land Foundation trial, the largest successfully prosecuted terror financing trial in U.S. history. Okay, that's criminal activity, right? Conspiring together, racketeering, okay, conspiring together to do something criminal. It doesn't matter if you're Christian or Muslim. That's a crime, right? So I think that's where we make the distinction with conduct. If Christians walked through that park on the sidewalk and they're accosted, they're assaulted,
I would be so interested to see what would happen.
Would people be held accountable? Because when we do a prayer gathering, people are loving on folks, handing water out, praying for people, asking them how they're doing. We're worshiping together. You know what I'm saying? So it's interesting.
They don't get piss balloons thrown at them.
Right. Well, I don't.
I mean, maybe they do. I shouldn't make assumptions, but I'm just saying. I feel like it's a little bit of a double standard here.
I mean, that was shocking to be praying for people kindly in love and having them throw piss balloons over your head. Right.
God, that was so.
It was just. I mean, so. But the fact of the matter is, that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
And actually, by us going out as Christians and showing the difference of truth in love versus trying to force people to do something, accosting people, destroying property, etc., we show a very clear difference, right? It wasn't Christians rioting in 2020, right? I mean, that's very, very clear. They weren't burning buildings down. In fact, it was Christians of all ethnicities that were coming together to protect property.
I remember what happened in Coeur d'Alene when they tried to do that in downtown Coeur d'Alene. Everyone stood outside with their guns.
Yeah, multiple.
To try and do that here.
Yeah, I think they call it Gun d'Alene today.
Oh my gosh.
So, but the celebration, I think, is still celebrated every year, but it was different ethnicities. Everybody standing together, right? Because that's what it means to be an American. You had some, again, fifth column people here in the United States who will try to say that, what you're saying is you're just trying to set up a white ethno state and do this stuff.
What?
Look at that's a logical fallacy, right? So we're going back to kind of the Tucker Carlson thing. That's a logical fallacy. You can't beat the argument,
right?
The history, the geography, the context You can't beat any of that, so you gotta throw that out there. The fact of the matter is, it's Christianity that has made America great. And those aren't my words, which is interesting. There was actually a study done by the atheist communist Chinese. The results of it were published in a book called Jesus in Beijing, I believe pages 15 and 16. And in that book, the Chinese said it's not the technology. We looked at that, not the military, looked at that, not the politics, looked at that, political system. No, it is not the economics. It's actually a religion, Christianity, that gave rise to the West. And so the idea is that Christianity actually has allowed the freedom.
Yeah.
Interesting, if you go into a Muslim country, can you practice the same amount of religion in a Muslim country that you can practice here?
No.
So why is that? Right? We need to ask these hard questions. Why is it that it's always will allow everything except for Christianity? We'll allow everything except for people that believe the Constitution means what it says. We'll try to paint the Founding Fathers as terrorists, as some recent presentations have revealed, right? Why is that? Why is it always aimed at that one thing? And I'm here to tell you that kind of a discernment point for everybody out there is that if something is attacked like that, the general default position should be that there's something there that's true. And just you can vet people, you can vet ideas that way when ideas are really hammered. Some ideas are just rank false, and you can figure that out pretty quickly. But I'm talking where an idea is proven true, there's evidence behind it. You can see very clearly that the attack is actually a better endorsement. Like, who are your enemies is a better endorsement than even the idea itself sometimes.
I find it interesting in movies and in Hollywood and stuff like that. It's always Christianity or Catholicism in the horror movies that are portrayed in a sacrilegious way. And it's so interesting to me that there's always, these demonic births, or it's always people in convents, and it's always that narrative that's making the story of Jesus Christ, the story of his birth, death, and resurrection. And it's that is always being attacked. It's never Islam. Yeah. They never make a horror movie about Islam. And if there is one and I'm incorrect, please let me know. But to my knowledge, as someone who used to watch horror movies on a regular basis, I will say that.
Are you the horror movie expert? How many horror movies have been produced in the United States of America? I'm totally joking.
Oh my gosh. No, I'm not. Please don't. Stop. But no, what I'm saying is that it's always Christianity and Catholicism and the narrative of Jesus Christ that's attacked. And I find that so interesting because it's like the demonic realm wants to taint his story. Right. And it's so interesting because right now there's a play on Broadway, Jesus Christ Superstar. And Cynthia Erivo is playing Jesus Christ. An openly gay woman is playing Jesus Christ.
Total sacrilege, total blasphemy.
And she's getting a crown of thorns put on her head. She's got a cross on her back. I watched a video of that today. Okay, so are you going to do that to Islam? Why don't you dress up as Muhammad and do that?
Well, I mean, people have tried to paint Muhammad and see what happens in the wake of that, right?
What happened?
Well, you had Charlie Hebdo, for example, and you had the attempted attack down in Texas. Okay, so again, just for everybody, just for the Gen Z, just ask yourself the question: why? Why is it? Why is it always Christianity? Why is it always Christianity painted in such a horrendous light? Right?
It's so weird.
It is. It's why. And then you can see the good that has come out of Christianity. You can, even if you were comparing, people go, "What about the Crusades?" Right? And even Dr. Bill Warner did a fantastic video on that, showing the actual battles, the amount of battles. 200 in Spain alone. Maybe we'll do that on a future show. 200 in Spain alone, and then 25 crusade battles total. Yeah. Right? Out of versus 1,000. It was an offensive war of Islam against the West. And then hundreds of years later, there was a crusade.
Right.
So, we have to.
You can't really compare the two. They're completely different.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can't. And one is a defensive war, which gets back to the original thing, bringing it all the way full circle. the defensive war against Islamic aggression, okay, against the West, all right, was really at the center of this question regarding Iran. That would have been the better topic to discuss that, the historical context, the geographic context of the spread of Islam in that way. That would have probably been a better way to do that.
Yeah, and I think, just to end this all, what can we do? What is I mean, I know we can pray and we can warn the spirit and pray for America and the nations, and we can pray for, Jesus to bring peace and all of those things, but is there something that we can do now physically? What can we do to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to bring Jesus into the streets of America so we aren't overthrown?
Well, there's two questions there, actually. The first I would just answer with, to get the right answer, we got to ask the right question, right? And we got to know what the right question is. This whole Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz video.
Wrong question.
Wrong question. What is the right question? So that clears things up. We are always called to evangelize. We are always called to minister. We are always called to stand for the truth, no matter where God puts us. And it's the fact that Christians have been silent. It actually says, Jesus says the testimony is going to go to the ends of the earth. Mm-hmm. Well, you can't have a testimony, okay, unless there's been a test, all right? Otherwise, you just got a money, as a friend of mine likes to say, right? But you can't have a testimony without a test. That's first. And the second thing is, you don't really have testimony unless you say something and open your mouth. And I think Christianity is being too quiet. Open your mouth and let the Lord speak through you. That is what I believe you can do.
Amen.
So with that, we're coming to the end of our Gen Z segment today. If you want to know more about logical fallacies, there are a whole bunch of books written on this. You can just type it in. There's actually a list of logical fallacies. And just read it through. Try to get one that's just got the fallacy and then a quick explanation of it. Just read it through and then begin to understand that a lot of what you're hearing today, it just isn't true. In fact, it's intentionally not true. It's made to manipulate your emotions. This is Matt Shea with Megan Needham, as always, here at Patriot Radio. The awakening is here. This is the greatest generation, so keep up the fight.